Um, we're talking today about boosting immunity through nutrition in light of all the chatter around the coronavirus. We want to know how to avoid that, and indeed any other virus or flu or colds that we might get. There are many ways to approach this, and we decided to look at this through nutrition, and I'll explain why. So as we progress through, so this is going to be 4 parts, and I'm just releasing part 1 today. Part 1, we're going to be talking about introducing nutritionally dense foods into your diet. Part 2, we'll look at avoiding energy draining foods, toxicity. Part 3, we'll look at prime pattern diet typing, and part 4 is the bonus. So let's start off with part 1, introducing nutritionally dense foods into your diet. So when we talk about nutritionally dense food, what do we mean? Well, first we have micronutrients, such as fat and carbs, or carbohydrates, and proteins. And all food consists of those 3 things, plus some water. So we may be eating, maybe we need 1,500 calories, a day to meet our calorific energy needs. And maybe we're consuming enough fat and carbs and proteins to meet those needs. But it doesn't mean that we've met our micronutrient needs. Micronutrients being things like what the proteins break down into, amino acids, vitamins and minerals, and polyphenols. So, and if we're eating, plenty of food, but it's not good quality food, then we can be malnourished. And many people don't realize that malnourishment is incredibly common in the Western world, largely because of 2 reasons. One, the food that we eat is of low quality and contains a much less amount of micronutrients than it used to. And secondly, we're making poor choices, such as processed and packaged food. So this is and if we're not consuming a nutritionally dense diet, then we're definitely not going to be fueling our immune system, and we're going to not going to have the energy to fuel our immune system, and it's going to be very, very detrimental to us. So let me give you an example. So, I just went into let me just go back now. I went into Google and I typed in what are the top vitamins and minerals to boost your immune system, and I looked at those 5 results just to see what they said. Under vitamins, they listed vitamin A, vitamin B6, folate, which is vitamin 9, vitamin C, vitamin D, vitamin E, vitamin K. So basically, pretty much all of them. Minerals, they listed potassium, zinc, selenium, iron, copper, and sulfur. So, that's just pretty much everything. It's not like we can pick out one particular type of food which is incredibly rich in all those particular vitamins and minerals and just eat that only. There's also, in order to assimilate all those vitamins and minerals, we also need other synergistic vitamins and minerals, which combine with them to make a full package, so we can absorb them all, which is often why single vitamin or mineral type supplements don't work if there's not synergistic with their partners. For example, for years, gynecologists would give calcium to pregnant women, but of course we now know that without vitamin D, that causes calcification of the arteries. So again, going back to sort of real food is really the answer, because Mother Nature just packages up into sensible proportions that are ideal for us, and we have hundreds of thousands of years of genetic history that can deal with that. So let's move on to the main bulk of the slide. So here's the 7 things we're going to look at. The first one we talked about, maximizing minerals, vitamins, and polyphenols from food. The second thing I want to look at is organic food. So based on the research that we did, it looks like organic food contains 25% to 85% more nutrients than non-organic food. which is not surprising, really, if you think about, in order to grow organic food, you're using things like, horse manure and fish mulch to make really good quality soil, which is going to, and all the plants are going to suck up all those nutrients into the soil and make really good quality food. So there's a huge difference. So again, if you look at some of the organic food that we like to buy, like we like to get organic vegetables from Indonesia, which are grown in rich volcanic soils, which are even more mineral rich. So you're getting even more minerally dense food. We wrote an article on this, which you can look at. There with me here on our website, which is called "Is Organic Food in Singapore Really Worth It?" And we go into this in a lot of detail. This is actually just part one. But we went lots and lots of stuff. There's lots of great information on that. And then you can also go here into part two and get more information there. So I won't go into that in more detail here, but based on the research we looked at, it's 25 to 85% more. I feel it's probably much higher than that, but there's no vested interest in promoting organic food by the commercial food manufacturing companies. So you're unlikely to see any decent research in the future either, because that's the funding, comes from these big companies, and there's just no interest in supporting that movement. The next thing I'd like to look at is organs and egg yolks. Organs are the pound for pound, the most nutritionally dense and arguably healthiest food in the world, particularly liver. Let me show you exactly what I mean. So here I'm using a Cronometer, which is a way for logging clients' micro and macronutrient food ratios. Here, I've just got an average client here. This is average Singapore lady, aged between 40 and 60. Let's start off and look at blueberries, right? So if we take blueberry, we can see that it's 57 calories. This person needs about 1,700 calories in total. Eating 100 grams of blueberries would be about 3% of their total micronutrient targets. Let's have a look at these micronutrient details. Here's the protein. This is the protein in 100 grams of blueberries broken down by the essential amino acids. So very, very little protein. It's a fruit, so that's not surprising. Vitamins, we've got a little bit of vitamin C. We've got about 10%, a little bit of vitamin K, a little bit of copper and manganese. So vitamin C, obviously, which is something that everyone knows is very important for boosting immunity. You're going to get 10% of your vitamin C requirements from 100 grams of blueberries. So if you wanted to only eat blueberries and just hit that vitamin C level, you'd need to eat, about a kilogram of blueberries to get up to a recommended daily dose of vitamin C. It's not really practical. You'd also be missing out on lots and lots of other essential bits and bobs as well. Let's look at chicken liver. So also 100 grams of chicken liver. As you can see, we're meeting almost 50% of our nutrition targets from just 100 grams of chicken liver. If we scroll down here and we look at, I'm just going to use this pen here. This should be a bit easier. If we look at this, oh no, it didn't work. Let's try that again. If we look at this, there we go. It's all the protein needs. It's not really very well done, but anyway, you're meeting a lot of protein needs from amino acid needs from chicken liver. And then if we can look at the vitamins, good source of B vitamins, folate, which is B9, vitamin A. Actually, interestingly, 3 times more vitamin C in 100 grams of chicken liver versus 100 grams of blueberries, and lots of minerals as well. So pound for pound is just a fantastic health food. I'll just compare it for broccoli, and we'll come back and look at this later. Broccoli, you're actually meeting 12% of your nutrient needs from broccoli. So blueberries, as a reminder, was 3, broccoli is 12. And then if we look at broccoli, yeah, so slightly more amino acids than blueberry. Vitamins, a lot more impressive as well, a few minerals. Interestingly, vitamin C, 100 grams of broccoli and you're getting almost all of your vitamin C requirements. So despite what you hear in the media and by governments and things like that, the best way to get vitamin C is not actually from fruit, but it's from vegetables. And again, we'll go back to that later. So if we go back to our presentation, that's organs. Egg yolks are also fantastically dense with nutrients. An egg yolk requires everything that is required to build an entire chicken. It's basically Mother Nature's vitamin pill to you. And again, if we look at the egg yolk here on Chronometer, let's bang it in there. We can see pretty good on amino acids. Nice full spectrum there. On vitamins, yeah, pretty good. This is 100 grams of egg yolks, and minerals, okay. So that's pretty decent. Not quite as impressive as the liver, as a reminder. Let's go back to the liver. As you can see, a lot more dense, but certainly the egg yolks are a really good source of vitamins and minerals. So we'll go back to our presentation. So organs and egg yolks. If you're a vegetarian, then I suspect egg yolks will be a better source of nutrient for you than organ meats. Tubers. So what do I mean by, moving on to number 4 and tubers. What do I mean by tubers? Well, I'm talking about things like potatoes and sweet potatoes. So every culture in the world has a history of eating starchy carbohydrates. For example, in Asia, that might be rice or noodles. In Europe, it might be sort of bread or pasta. And in South America, maybe potatoes. But generally, you'll always see some sort of starchy carbohydrate sitting on the plate because it's a good source of sort of cheap energy. In Asia, very common to eat white rice, obviously. What you actually find is that sweet potatoes and potatoes have 2 times more nutrients on a pound-for-pound basis than white rice. If you're then eating organic sweet potatoes versus, say, a non-organic white rice, you're probably looking at 3 times more micronutrients, which is really fantastic because if you think about it, you can eat far less to hit your micronutrient targets. And that might go some way to explaining why the Okinawans, tend to live longer, or used to live longer anyway, before fast food entered their lives and poor quality food. They used to live a lot longer than the mainland Japanese, basically because they ate a lot more purple sweet potatoes as part of their starchy carbohydrate portion of the diet, rather than the mainland Japanese, which eat more white rice. So it's very interesting. So we prefer tubers as the main source of starchy carbohydrate. Potatoes, sweet potatoes. We also got things like yams, cassava, taro, jicama, things like that. Moving on to number 5, there is a huge difference between organic, grass-fed, pastured animals such as beef and lamb, chickens and pigs, and wild-caught fish versus farmed fish. A typical cow, is in a commercially raised animal is raised in what's called a CAFO, or a concentrated animal feeding operation, where the cow is kept in a very confined space. It's fed a diet of grains. Grains are really unhealthy for a cow. In fact, you can't feed cow grains for its entire life, as it would kill it. So generally what happens, most cows are fed on grass for a certain period of life, and then they're fattened up on grains for the last sort of 90 to 120 days, which totally destroys the animal, and they have to pump it full of antibiotics so it doesn't get sick. It's also kept in very cramped conditions and sort of knee deep in its own bovine feces. So again, more antibiotics required so it doesn't get sick. Of course, growth hormones utilized to make it grow big because cows are sold by weight. The grain and the antibiotics make the cow fat, again, which makes more money because it's sold by weight. So all this is, actually rather an unhealthy product, and that's not the way that nature intended. Cows are supposed to eat grass and shrubs and daisies and buttercups and things like that, and that's how you create a healthy animal. And if you obviously eat an unhealthy animal, that is not going to be ideal for your health at all. We can't treat our bodies like a human rubbish bin and expect to not pay the consequences. So eating good quality beef, chicken, pork, and fish is absolutely critical. And again, you can read more about that on this blog on here called "Is Organic Food in Singapore Really Worth It?" Fermented foods. Fermented foods, very, very interesting. For three reasons. The first is, what am I talking about fermented foods? Well, fermented foods kind of fall into a few categories. You've got fermented dairy, such as yogurt and kefir and cheese. We've got fermented soy, such as tempeh, onchon, miso, and natto. Drinks, such as kombucha and beet kvass. And then we have vegetables, such as fermented sauerkraut, kimchi, carrots, and ginger, etc. Now, these are great for a number of reasons. One is they're great for our guts. Our guts, or our gastrointestinal tract, which runs from mouth to anus, can be anywhere between 21 and 42 feet long. It's full of friendly bacteria and unfortunately often unfriendly bacteria. We want to, just like a garden, we want to boost the friendly bacteria, we want to boost the flowers and the grass, and we want to reduce the unfriendly bacteria, we want to reduce the weeds. And that's great for our immune system because a lot of our immune system resides in our gastrointestinal tract, particularly the small intestine, as a kind of first line of defense to prevent foreign invaders going from outside the body to inside the body, because everything in your gastrointestinal tract is essentially outside the body. And so our immune system is there to sort of, keep the bad guys from coming in. So fermented foods help boost your friendly microbial bacteria and crowd out the bad bacteria. So that's really, really helpful. The other thing about fermented foods is that the nutrients tend to be amplified and more bioavailable. So, for example, let's take natto, for example. So natto is made from soy. It's very popular in Japan as a sort of breakfast condiment or sort of a breakfast side dish. It comes from the soybeans. Soybeans are not particularly healthy food in a raw form. They're quite difficult to digest. The nutrients are tightly bound up in phytic acid or phytates, and they have some problematic compounds such as lectins, phytates, and some various other anti-nutrients. However, when you ferment it over many days, as they do with natto, and if you've not seen it, it's kind of like the bean becomes like a stringy, looks almost moldy, and it's kind of stinky and a bit of an acquired taste. But actually, a lot of those anti-nutrients go away. The bioavailability of the nutrients is upregulated, and the amplification of those nutrients is upregulated. So actually, the process of bacterial fermentation in the soybean creates far more vitamin K2, which is like a real super vitamin. Weston Price referred to that as the component X, which he sort of identified as one of the key differences between healthy people and not healthy people. Back then they didn't know it was vitamin K2. He just called it, he called it activator X. That's right. So fermented foods are really, really good. And natto is probably the best way to consume soy. So finally, we're moving on to glutathione. Glutathione is the body's master antioxidant. It's been shown in studies to prove very effective against viruses. It's protective against cells from keeping viruses out, and it's also a free radical scavenger. So any kind of toxicity in the environment is combated by high glutathione. Glutathione is produced in your liver. It consists of 3 amino acids: cysteine, glycine, and glutamate. Let's have a look at that on the chronometer. So let's go back to our chicken liver again here. Right, and we can see cysteine, glutamate or glutamic acid, and glycine. So these 3 all here, and these 3 go together, combine together to make glutathione. And this is really, really important. And a lot of what we do here at Levitize is helping boost people's glutathione production, because when you can boost that really high, then the body can go after what it prioritizes as a problem, whether that's heavy metal toxicity, molds, funguses, parasites, or any kind of free radicals from bad food, all that stuff. And the body has a kind of intelligence. It goes after what it needs to. So boosting glutathione is great. So then you can let the body go and do its work. So what else helps glutathione? Well, vitamin C works synergistically with glutathione as a free radical scavenger. So having high vitamin C is really important. Vitamin C is not stored in the body. You sort of pee it out during the day. It lasts for less than 12 to 24 hours. So we need to eat vitamin C rich foods regularly. Let's go back to our chronometer again, and we can see again blueberries. 12% of our vitamin C needs for the day are met from 100 grams of blueberries. But if we look at broccoli, we can see that 86% are met from broccoli, which is absolutely fantastic. So, excuse me. So actually, if we look at the 10 foods highest in vitamin C, and I made a list here, we've got peppers, all colors, mustard spinach, pak choi, broccoli, kale, cauliflower, kohlrabi, cabbage, radish, and spinach. So what's interesting about that list is there's no fruit on there. All of those, apart from the peppers, are from the Brassica family. So that's basically cruciferous vegetables, all greens, essentially. Well, cabbage can be white, and radishes are often white, but apart from that, they still fall into the greens category. So it's really important to eat your greens. Lettuce does not count, by the way. The next thing we have on the list here is alpha lipoic acid, which is very important to regenerate glutathione levels. So once the glutathione's gone and done its job, it can be regenerated, so you don't have to eat to create more. Precursor to alpha lipoic acid is sulfur. Interestingly, the vegetables that are rich in vitamin C that I just mentioned are also very rich in sulfur. So we can also, so the Brassica family, cruciferous vegetables, everything I've read out, we could also add to that kale and Brussels sprouts as well, and arugula or rocket. So that's really important. And then the last one, vitamin D. Ideally, we want to get vitamin D from the sun. It's when we get vitamin D from the sun, it's water soluble and more easily synthesized in the body than if we get it from food. And some people are more effective in converting vitamin D from the sun from food anyhow. So ideally, we want to get vitamin D from the sun. Vitamin D has been shown to be a catalyst for glutathione production, and it upregulates glutathione production. So focusing on those, 6 things on nutrient density, and also thinking about the cruciferous vegetables from the Brassica family to boost glutathione production, that is going to go a long way to boosting your immunity. So if you do come into contact with someone, you're less likely to get affected, or if you do, you're going to bounce back a lot more quickly. So thanks for listening. That's the end of part one. Part two, we're going to be looking at avoiding energy draining foods and toxicity. So thanks for listening.